Hello, everyone. I am so excited. We've got with us Jacklyn Lindsey. She's the co-founder and CEO of kindness.org. You might think of her as the queen of kindness. So if you've ever thought you might want to learn more about being kind, this is the time to pay attention.
Welcome to the Your Mark on the World show with your champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
This episode is made possible via the support of our sponsors, including Johnson & Johnson's Caring Crowd. Jaclyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Devin.
Well, we're thrilled to have you and so grateful that you would make time. I'm fascinated by your work because you start, or at least include in your work, important scientific research. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned about the science of kindness.
Absolutely. I wanted to begin by studying if there was even scientific evidence that kindness mattered, it was valuable, was it measurable? And one of the very first things we intended to understand was the link between kind acts and well-being. And so I can tell you that, yes, indeed, when you do a kind act, there's a significant effect, which is not a word used lightly in academia, a significant effect on your well-being and your happiness. I also think one of the most exciting things I've learned is doing a kind act is one of the most effective ways to simultaneously influence the well-being of both you and the receiver of your kind act, which is so powerful to think about.
It is amazing to think about the scientific foundation, what we learn about this. I think a lot of us have long suspected that doing kind things created greater well-being, but what causes that? Have you been able to figure out from your scientific research what creates that connection between doing something kind and feeling good ourselves?
There's the physical response. And so certainly we've seen, serotonin release and what happens in the brain. It's, triggering the reward center of our mind. And so, yes, there's certainly that aspect of it. And I think that it was a hypothesis that most of us could have assumed would be true. You do something, you feel good with that act. But there was something important about validating it, which is what we set out to try and do, is to really lend the idea that kindness is powerful. It's a strength. It's not politeness. It goes beyond just something that we should teach children. But we felt by leading with that research that would really drive home to anyone, the skeptic, the cynic, that it was a powerful tool and it was an effective way to create positive change. So, yeah.
Excellent. Now, as you have been working in this space, how do you teach people to be more kind? And I guess I think of it as two kinds of people, but really it's a spectrum for, kindness comes easily to you. It's hard for me. Along a spectrum, we all fall somewhere on that. And there are a few people who are true curmudgeons that seem never to do anything kind, to bristle at everything. And then there are other people who are kind no matter what. How do you teach people at any point along that spectrum to be more kind?
Excellent question, and definitely the thing that we're working through daily over here at kindness.org. So when we think about it, we really look at it like a funnel. And for us, our mission is at the top of that, to educate and inspire people to choose kindness. And I think the really important thing to call out here is that kindness is an action, it's a behavior, it's a choice. And so every day, those people on their spectrum are faced with choices of how they are engaging with their micro decisions and how those decisions are affecting themselves and the people surrounding them, even the environment, if you will. So we find our role as trying to get people to hopefully choose kindness more often than not. And like anyone on a spectrum, we're meeting them where they are. So a lot of the ways we work is activating people across the digital landscape. And so trying to meet people in, social, for example. And we put out things that we are using through our research that we know will trigger, hopefully, some kind of response or something where you become more self-aware of the decisions you're making within social media, let's say. And in that funnel, the first thing is awareness. So how do you become aware of how you can choose kindness? What does choosing kindness look like? For the person who's maybe the cynic, that's where we're giving you the science. We're giving you the data. We're helping show why this matters, how we're measuring it. For maybe the person over here who wakes up and there's butterflies everywhere and it's just their kind of natural, response to choose kindness, we're continuing to inspire them about why it matters and putting really amazing content out. And the next step is the action. You can become someone who's aware. You can say, okay, I know right now Jaclyn's saying the science tells me this is good. But does that then become reflective in your actions? And are you then starting to choose kindness as a result? The bottom of the funnel, the hardest part, is how do you make it a habit? How do we get as many people as possible to say, all right, I'm buying in. I'm hearing this is, good for me. It's the same thing with cigarette smoking. You can be told it's bad for you, but does that actually get you to stop smoking? And, it's obviously a totally different example, but the same idea in the essence. We want to create a habit where you are choosing it and it's becoming your default and your reflex. I will let you know when we solve that. If you have any ideas, you let me know. It's hard work, it's complex, and it's certainly not anything that we've solved yet. But we have amazing people that are helping us think about it and working towards prototyping that behavior shift.
I think there is a difference between doing good and being kind. Mm. And that is a complex concept for me, but I see it in my own life. I saw it with my father, from whom I think I picked up some of my bad habits in this regard. But my father was always interested in doing good, but it was frequent that he had little tolerance for the person in front of him, right? Mm. So he could be unkind, occasionally even to people he loved, but certainly to strangers at times. And he, I don't want to make him sound like a horrible guy, but I picked up some of those habits of being sort of gruff with people unnecessarily. And it's really difficult to overcome that. But it's interesting as I've tried. I have found people are kinder back, and it's remarkable to experience that change. As you do this work, have you found people who were able to change? Are you hearing stories of people who are saying, because of you, I've done this thing and I had this experience as a result?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for sharing your story. And I think that personal anecdote, I bet so many listeners are going to be able to identify with. I'm a new mom, and on a personal note, I'm constantly thinking about, wow, are my actions lining up to my desires for what I want my child to grow up and how I want him to be and to live as a citizen of this world. So thank you for that. And what I would say humbly is that we are overwhelmed by the letters pouring in from people around the world. Again, thinking of that spectrum, we are all humans in this big, messy, complicated world. And it doesn't come without pain and hardship and things that I can't even begin to understand or explain. War, these really terrible, real things in the world. But what we are constantly struck by is that these micro behaviors, these small acts of kindness, when someone says yes to them, the shift it can have, the profound impact. Remarkable was the word used, and I think that's exactly right. And it's when you get a little taste of that and you realize the power of it, and the power of it to be a solution, an essential ingredient in social change. That's what we are daily inspired by. And, a couple anecdotes on our side. There was a gentleman who was battling loneliness and depression, and stumbled upon our site and joined an initiative that just said, try to go out and give a compliment to a stranger. And he wrote us this long letter saying this is very hard for him, that he struggled in general to even leave his home, let alone talk to somebody. But for some reason, he felt very motivated to try. Was there something where he could at least get outside himself and his box and do this? And he wrote in this letter saying he did 2 compliments to a stranger. The first was so hard and so scary, but the effect it had, he immediately went and did it again because he couldn't believe how good he felt about himself. And I think that's an example where someone is walking through things in a very difficult way. Being isolated is hard, and there is no silver bullet. Of course, I'm not trying to say go do a kind act and everything's going to be fine for you. But that, I think, is one example where it can combat some of the most difficult things we're going through in life, is just being kind to someone else and that feeling we get when we do it. And my other example is actually one of our scientists. Dr. Curry joined us originally because he was a skeptic. And he said, I am signing on to your project to disprove that kind acts have an effect on well-being. And at the end, the science told him otherwise. And so now he's one of our biggest fans and advocates, working with us consistently to help shape our understanding of kindness to build a better world. And he's an amazing one because he really was that cynic who now proudly says, yes, research tells me, then I believe it, that kindness matters.
What is the end game for you? What do you hope a more kind world looks like or becomes? How is it different or better than the world we have?
I was bullied when I was young, and those circumstances had an impact on shaping who I was and who I became as an adult, in ways that I couldn't even have imagined they would have when I was going through it. When I look around at the world today, I truly say this, and this is not a visionary kind of talk. This is real talk, that I cannot think of a single issue where kindness doesn't play a role. And I imagine a world where if kindness was chosen first, or chosen as that default, if more people said yes to kindness more often, I believe we would see an effect on things like bullying, improved mental health, less loneliness, less isolation. I believe it's something that can connect people across race, across religion, across socioeconomic status. And I don't think it takes a lot. And so it feels like a solution that is quite simple, if we can just activate more people to do it. And that ripple effect, it's something where it's exponential impact. To what extent, I don't even know if we'll ever fully understand. But you do it because it matters, and it will influence those things. And so it's a world where everything that's not great is improved and better. And it's a world where the things that are great are exponentially greater.
I want to test your hypothesis that kindness can improve everything by asking about climate change. How would kindness impact climate change?
We have an unbelievable amount of people in our community who join us because they are so passionate about the environment. And for them, it's, again, we say education and inspiration. When people are informed on a topic and we can activate them to choose differently, they're going to contribute to solving a problem, hopefully, and creating change. And so when we look at climate change, what is the role that we're playing as human beings and our contribution to it? And how do we choose kindness towards Mother Earth and towards our responsibility here and now? What does that look like? And so we do, again, feel it's an action, and it's a commitment, it's an intention. And so anything that we're doing to contribute, to improving our environment and the future state of where our world is heading when it comes to climate change, I do think that's an act of kindness, and a heroic one at that.
Oh, fantastic. Well, Jaclyn, what are you most proud of having accomplished?
I'm proud that I said yes to this, because it was very scary. And it was the hardest thing in front of me. How do you measure kindness? How do you build something that creates change and lead it in a way where you're smart and effective and efficient? Because the outputs can be hard. It's not always 1 + 1 and here's my 2 for you. It's the business of humans. And that means it's very hard to measure success and impact. And that was really intimidating, because I wanted to make sure that I could talk to people in a way where they understood the effect of this work. So I'm proud that I leapt into this with no blueprint and trusted my instinct that this was my next, life's work and next calling, if you will. And I'm really proud that I'm accomplishing it as a mom, because I work full time and I'm a new mom, and they're both my babies. I have 2 babies in a way. I started this, before I became a mom, and I love seeing how I show up to both roles. And then on the personal, kind of within the business side, I'm most proud knowing that we are affecting people individually in ways that I never could have imagined. I hoped for, but couldn't have really seen it translate the way it has. And it's my daily dose of inspiration. I call it kindspiration. These people that I'll never meet around the world. We're talking to people in 190 nations, and I think that's what I'm most proud of.
Jaclyn, what's the most important lesson you've learned?
You have to be okay with the ambiguity, and you have to be okay that you don't know it all. So I've never been a CEO. And when my husband and I were talking about this, he said every first-time CEO had never been a CEO. And you figure it out, and it was embracing the unknown and being okay with the gray. And I think a lot of times there's a pressure that you have to have a very black and white, clear-cut understanding. I lead with a conviction that this work matters, and it's the most significant thing I can do with my time. I want to use my time wisely every day, and I know this is where I'm having my biggest impact for myself. So the lesson for anyone, if you're doubting yourself, if you're in that gray place, if you think you want to leap and you don't know what that looks like, believing in yourself and trusting those instincts, that's probably the best thing you can do to honor yourself and feel good at the end of the day.
Why is this so important to you personally? You mentioned being bullied, but lots of people are bullied and don't devote their career to being kind. How do you connect the dots for yourself?
I asked myself what my mission statement was. I actually had a friend who said, "What do you stand for?" And I think if we all looked within ourselves, we would know the things that matter most to us, and it may be things like, oh, family matters most, my kids, whatever. But I wanted to know who at my core did I want to be, and what did I want to embody and live and stand for every single day. And I wrote in giant letters in a journal, I want to inspire kindness and generosity in the world. And it wasn't simply about my personal experience of bullying. Sure, that played a role in why I think kindness matters. But it came from the belief that I think a lot of challenges in the world come from humans not treating each other well, and an opportunity to be a part of something where I'm getting people to hopefully treat humans better. And it stems out of this idea of choosing kindness more. I said, I can sign up for that. That's something I can do. And so it is personal, yes, but it's also something that I believe in, regardless of my own circumstances, is a connective tissue between humans that will never go away.
Jaclyn, what is your superpower?
Is kindness an okay answer?
Yeah.
Trying really hard to figure out how to lead with kindness. My superpower, I try to create a safe space for anyone to always feel like they can know they have a listening, non-judgmental ear.
Oh, that's great. Well, Jaclyn, thank you so much for being with us today. Before you go, would you take just a moment to tell everyone how they can learn more about kindness.org and how they can connect with you personally?
Absolutely. Visit our site, kindness.org. We have initiatives and ideas and ways there to try and do an initial micro act of kindness that might not have been something you've ever done before. And I would love to hear from you. If you are the cynic or the skeptic, or if you're the person who wants to figure out how to bring kindness to your workplace or your school, please email me, Jaclyn@kindness.org. I respond to every single letter and message I receive or our team receives. So we are listening and we want to hear from you. And Devin, thank you so much for this time. I really appreciate your perspective and being invited to talk about this.
Well, thank you, Jaclyn. It's really a pleasure to have you. And we wish you every success in your efforts to make the world a little bit kinder.
Thank you.
All right, let's do some good.
At Caring Crowd, we believe everyone has the power to make a difference. Through our crowdfunding platform for community health, we empower passionate people to drive real change. Whether you work for a nonprofit organization, volunteer, or want to get involved for the first time, you can post a campaign on Caring Crowd. Join us, because caring is where change begins.
Thank you for listening. Devin Thorpe's mission is to end extreme poverty, improve global health, and mitigate climate change before 2045 by finding and sharing the stories of those who are doing the most good. You can join with other listeners to accelerate Devin's mission by visiting helpdevin.org right now.